I got a phone call from a professor at St. Leo University, counselor, and asked me if I thought a dog could help a veteran with PTSD. So I said yes, and she said, well, I want to send you a vet. She sent me another vet that I talked to, and the next day she said, what did you say to him? He, for the first time, said he has hope, and he hasn't said that ever with her.
Baba, Foos. Good boy. Let's go outside, buddy. Seats. Good boy. Good boy. Yeah, he's a good boy. Yeah, he's a good boy. I'm gonna go outside, buddy. Yeah. All right. Good boy. Baba, Foos.
You getting tired already? He's a good boy. Yeah, he's a good boy. Oust. Good boy. Seats. Good boy. Ready?
The normal person, when they see a service dog, they either think you're blind or mobile. My husband was actually asked if he was blind with his service dog. My husband was in the grocery store by himself with his dog shopping. And they asked him, was he blind? And of course, my husband, he doesn't like to talk to people he doesn't know anyhow. He said, do I look blind? He goes, well, you've got a service dog. Labs are seeing eye dogs. Yeah. He goes, no, I'm not blind. He goes, I can pick things up off the shelf just like you. And people don't understand. They think that. They think they're either blind or it's mobility. They never question you. If you're walking with a cane, you're in a wheelchair, or you have something like, they'll never question you. But when they question you, it's when you're just like you, just like my husband, walking around with a dog beside them, and they don't look like they need one.
Typically, what I get from most people that come in is they're just very apprehensive. They do not, and they don't know. So they don't know what they're going to be getting into, and they're kind of looking around, and they're a little bit intimidated by everything going on around them. And they think that, it's just going to be like a switch where they walk in and everything's fine. It's usually about halfway through the interview that I find them loosening themselves up, and they're finally like, okay, like, you're just a normal person. Like, you're not like the VA, you're not like all these other doctors and everybody that I've seen. Like, you're just a normal person. And it's like, no, I'm normal. I'm just here, want to help bring you into the program. Everybody here is just like a giant family, and that's the way that we operate. We all have our quirks. We're all, not normal and whatnot, but we all work together, and we can all kind of rely on each other. And that's usually when I see it in their eyes when it switches over and they're like, oh, okay, so like you actually have my back. And it's like, no, we legitimately do.
Walk your dogs by me, guys. My stature is lower.
Good job, Ralph.
Come here.
Leave it. No, leave it. Good
Come
job,
on.
Ralph. Leave it.
Come here. Very good. Very good.
I trained dogs for 27 years. I had a for-profit dog training business, and near the end of 2014, somewhere around there, I started seeing more veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and they were signing up for my classes, which was for the public, and bringing a dog because somebody told them that a dog would help them with PTSD or traumatic brain injury. I got a phone call one day from a woman that had asked me if I could help her husband, and she said he's a veteran and he needs help with a service dog. And I said, well, I need to meet him and see what I can do. At that point, I'd not been really training dogs for PTSD, but more for mobility and people that needed balance and help in walking. So I told her to come out and bring him so I could meet him. And she did come out. They came out in the middle of one of my classes.
He wouldn't get out of the car. I had to go out and tell him, she can't help us if you won't get out of the car. I'm going to give you 5 more minutes. I've been sitting here for an hour in the heat with mosquitoes eating me because she was still training outside at the Humane Society. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give you 5 more minutes. I've worked 8 hours today. I'm tired. It's hot. If you don't get out in 5 minutes, then I'm going to assume you don't want help. And then we're going to have to start discussing the options for me and the kids because it's getting dangerous now.
So eventually he got out of the car and he came over. Didn't really talk to me, but he watched the class. But from what I understood at that time, it was the first time he'd been out away from home. He'd only left his home 2 or 3 times in the last 2 years. So he was overwhelmed. We had 10 people there plus people watching, and it was almost more than he could handle. But he did stay there and watch, and I told him that I would do my best to help him, and at that point was just going to put him into a regular obedience class to start with, like I did with everybody else. And fast forward, he did go home, they talked about it, and he decided to try it. And he started coming out, and didn't really talk to anybody for months, really. Stood mostly and watched at a distance with his back to a tree. We were outside. But I watched him, and he would practice when no one was looking and did extremely well.
All right, I'm going to come up behind. Just watch your dog. You see? Okay, he's already telling you there's somebody behind you. And now go ahead and put him to post command. And the whole idea, bring him around. So now he's got your sex. He's watching your back.
I know for my husband, it was having something that it didn't matter what he did. It didn't matter what he did that day. It didn't matter what he did when he was deployed. It didn't matter how horrible he felt about himself. That dog loved him unconditionally. And he needed to know that there was someone who could do that, because he didn't trust that if I knew the things that he had to do, that I would be able to handle that. So being able to trust that bond, that she doesn't care. She doesn't care what you did or what angry words you said. She still wanted to be there every time. And that was what he needed. Because I couldn't always be there every time, especially with kids. It's like, oh, well, I'm sorry you're struggling today, but if I don't go out there, the boys are going to tear the house apart. So, having that companion to always be there and to always pull him back from that edge of panic and anxiety and depression and all the lovely things that come with PTSD. I don't think that had he not gotten out of that car, not only would we not be celebrating our anniversary tomorrow, but I would have probably already been at his funeral.
The first part was, getting them out, getting, our vets out and working in the community again. But it also creates a bond.
Over the last 2 years, just seeing the difference that it makes in the veteran's life and in the dog's life too, I mean, dogs want to work. They want a purpose. And to see them with their veterans, and now they both have a purpose. It's just really heartwarming.
One of the big things that I've run into that I didn't even think about when I started was there are people who don't choose to engage or don't choose to fully engage in the program because they don't feel like they deserve it. And you absolutely do.
We've all been touched by a veteran, every single one of us, in one way or another. And even if they don't have a direct connection to the military, they understand that sacrifices were made, and they want to give back to those veterans. So don't let fear stand in your way.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you to all our volunteers and our staff, because it's not one person that can make this work. It truly does take a village, and we're a family. Our staff, we are a family too, and we work united together, and without them this would not be possible. And I just want the public to know too, to be kind. Not all disabilities are visible, so don't assume when you see someone with a dog that doesn't look like they're crippled or need a dog, doesn't necessarily mean they don't need that dog. So try to be kind to people. And we'll just keep going one step at a time, one veteran at a time through the door, and help as many as God brings to us.